All right, show me the money. NFL picks are back for week number one of the 2024 NFL season. We're going to kick it off the way we wrapped up 2023. Martino Puccio is here with us here. Martino, how are you?
Not too bad. Been super excited, very eager for the NFL season to start. Despite all the debacle that happened last season, I am still amped for the Jets. Partially because I did my first fantasy draft. So just the fantasy draft is what draws me back in. Preseason games are more terrifying for me because I just don't want anybody to get hurt. So it's not even enjoyable. The only enjoyable part is when you make through training camp and all the preseason games, and you can finally select your team. So that's where I'm at, and I'm excited to go.
Yeah, we're recording on August 27th, recording in advance, now the preseason is done here. Like my fantasy draft is not till Sunday and Tuesday, so I have time. So
I have another one on Sunday. This one was pretty early. This is the work league. So one of your fellow guests, Alan Pines, is
that's
also in this league as well. I don't think we'll be facing each other this year because it's a 14 team, two divisional thing where you mostly play your division, and I don't believe he's in my division.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So let's get that here. And speaking of the preseason stuff, like we didn't have to worry much as Jet fans because they put everybody in bubble wraps for the season. So pretty much everybody's gonna be there week one, except for as of recording time, Mr. Holdout, Hassan Reddick. So the Jets
Yes.
are like in pretty good shape right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as good a shape as you can be in coming out of training camp, really happy for what you see and read from a lot of the reports and just stuff that's been going on in practice. Everybody's been healthy again. You're never going to be fully healthy throughout an entire NFL season. It would be insane. That's more miraculous than going undefeated, in my opinion. But yeah, listen, I mean, the vibes are positive. You have to stay that way. I think if you're a Jets fan, this is still one of the most talented rosters that we've ever seen in the entire franchise's history, let alone yours and I's lifetime, especially for me, because I know you remember vaguely 1998 or much better than I do. So this for me is easily 53-man roster, the best one I think I've seen the Jets put together, especially in like over a decade. No chance.
Yeah, it's crazy the expectation the Jets had too, because this is a team that, like, obviously last year, four plays in, Rodgers goes down. They still win 7 games, and they
Yes.
have a strong offseason. They fix the lineup. They bring in Mike Williams. They draft Fashanu. And you see, like, for the first time, I think, in a while, like, the Jets are preseason betting favorites to win the AFC East, something I have not seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, they came on late in the preseason, I believe. They weren't even like heading into preseason the favorite to win the division. I think the last I checked, they were like plus 165. I could be
Uh,
wrong. That could
Yeah,
just be FanDuel.
I think as of post time, that's what the number is, like plus 165. I mean, the Bills were like close behind.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's kind of what it's going to go down to because I mean, if you really just like think about projection wise on who would be healthiest, I know we have Aaron Rodgers and Rodgers is coming off that injury. There's still Tua and that entire, issue that he has staying healthy on top of some of the flaws that Miami has. And listen, Buffalo's the team to beat in this division. They've proven that over the past couple of years. They've proven it in the playoffs too. So yeah, I mean, listen, it's exciting. It's not as much nerve-wracking because it kind of feels like maybe next year if we're lucky, Rodgers comes back. But this is where you go for it. This is like where, you know, hopefully some miraculous season, not miraculous because they're talented, but one of those seasons that you look back upon and be like, the Jets finally did the deed. They did something that we thought they never could, and that's win the Super Bowl, which I think they have a good shot at, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because even the Super Bowl is a lot, but like think about the fact that like this team has not hosted a home playoff game since 2002, which is one of the longest droughts in the
Yeah, no, like dude, I don't even remember it. I don't even think I was technically a Jets fan. I didn't become a Jets fan until we lost to Pittsburgh because I believe we beat Indy in
yeah,
2002. Was that what it was?
yeah, 41 nothing against the Colts.
Yeah, so even again in the new uh MetLife Stadium, the beautiful stadium, we have not even hosted a playoff game, which is insane. I think only the Giants hosted one playoff game. They beat the Falcons
Yeah,
on the
that's
way
right.
to that Super Bowl. So it's been terrible for both teams for the most part. I know the Giants won in one of the first years, but again, I mean, it's just exciting, man. This is all you can ask for in the NFL. It's any given Sunday, so they have a real shot.
Yeah, they certainly do here. It's crazy because there's a lot of pressure on this team too, because we know the 13-year playoff drought. This is year 5 for Joe Douglas, year 4 for Saleh, and like I think Aaron Rodgers basically made it clear. It's like if we don't get the job done, everybody's out of here at the end of the year. So like this is a ton of pressure on this team.
Yeah, I think there's like to me, I don't see as much pressure. I think there's more pressure on other teams within the division, to be quite honest with you. I know there's an enormous pressure for the Jets just because of who Rodgers is and where this project's at. But if you look at the Bills, they're the ones who've been falling short of their aspirations and goals. And same goes for the Dolphins. They've been making the playoffs, these teams. Neither have been to the Super Bowl. The Dolphins have yet to win a playoff game for the first time since I think 2000 was the last time. So
Yep.
again, if you're really looking at that as well, I would say the Jets actually have the least amount of pressure out of those 3 teams, depending on how you look at it. I know the Jets, because Rodgers is the biggest star out of the bunch, they do have that pressure, and there's the New York side of things. But again, when you don't make the playoffs for 14 years now, it's a very long time. And what are the expectations?
Yeah.
That's the reality of it too. So it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think one thing is important that the fans don't really realize. I haven't talked about it as much here. Is like unlike last year when the NFL gave them the murderers
Mm.
row out of the gate with like all these elite quarterbacks on the top here. Their schedule is not set up too badly. I mean, I think it past that 49er game here. You looking here at Tennessee, New England, Denver. I mean, apart from like the short weeks and some of the travel, like you figure that like this schedule they can get out to a very fast start if they play their potential.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you put yourself in a position to do well enough at the start of the season. I think the bye is late enough in the year that you could absolutely regroup. Just if things get a little shaky. Again, like you mentioned, that schedule is not too crazy. San Francisco, I think it'll be an interesting first game. I prefer to play a team like that first week of the season. McCaffrey obviously had that calf strain for the entirety of the preseason, didn't really get a chance to play. How strong is he going to be for that opening game? I think that's a really important factor going into that one. And then again, Tennessee, I like what they've done to help Will down there. And to be quite honest with you, if you look at those other teams right there, New England, Denver, Minnesota, as you mentioned, those are not the toughest of games. These are opponents that the Jets should be favored against. They probably will be favored against. And even some of those road games after the fact, Pittsburgh, New England, and Arizona, are they that difficult of road games? Probably the better Pittsburgh team that you would play in recent years for that. Obviously, New England is who they are with that rookie quarterback. And head coach, and then the Cardinals will still have a lot to prove. I think there's a lot of positivity on the Jets schedule. They had an incredibly difficult schedule last year, let alone not only the opponents that they posted at MetLife, where they had to go on the road. So yeah, again, overall, I think this is a obviously there is no easy schedule in the NFL, but this is one of the more favorable schedules that you will see for a team that is expected to contend.
Yeah, and knock on wood, everyone, the Jets are stay healthy here. I think you can realistically say, you know what, like get to the bye, like 8-3 is in play, I think.
I think 8-3 is in play. You never know what happens in the NFL. Teams could lose to the most of bizarre of situations. Obviously, I don't think they're going to go clean through the division. They have yet to proven that they can beat Miami. They're not scared of the Bills, and they've beaten the Bills really when they shouldn't have. But I think just getting results against Miami, and then again, New England is a big thing as well. So for me, I'm not as worried. I'm not as worried. And this is a great defense that's not going to be exhausted by the end of the season, because your hope, even if Rodgers, gets banged up, you still have one of the best backups in the NFL in Tyrod Taylor. So that's a big plus.
Is a big plus here. And we'll start that first against the 49ers here. Obviously, a marquee matchup here in the NFL season. I think you're a Jet fan. You're happy to get it out of the way early because that's probably, I think, the most difficult game on their schedule is that road trip out west. You have questions the 49ers, obviously, here with, like the Brandon Ayuk
Mhm.
situation, the McCaffrey injury here. Like sometimes you might catch them a little slow early in the season here. Like if you're the Jets, this is a big measuring stick game, I feel like. I think like
Yes.
there's a not a lot for you to lose here because I think most people expect the Jets to lose that game, and I think they're 4-point underdogs as of recording time. So this is a chance where I think the Jets can, see how they fare up against one of the NFL's two best teams, and then see, okay, this is what we got to do to get better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they on both sides of the ball, like they have to prove that they can hang with guys like these. As good as the defense was, sometimes they were getting exposed. Whether or not the excuses were built in just because of what happened in terms of just staying on the field all the time because Zach Wilson just kept coughing the ball up. We have to see if they're more of that bend don't break sort of defense as well. Can't let them punch it in because the 49ers are obviously widely recognized as the most talented offense in the NFL when you go by position. Ayuk, I'm not 100% sure what that situation will be by then too. I'm sure you know that as well. So I think that's a huge factor in this. And maybe Ayuk does leave. Maybe you get the Jets at a pretty good number if you're just talking the betting side of things. And the funny part is, because I know you operate like this and the average Jets fan does, when we think of games like this for the Jets, we don't factor in that we have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time leading us for it. So if we're like, yeah, maybe if the Jets keep it close, maybe something good will happen. But it's like, well, you're keeping it close with Aaron Rodgers now. That's a completely different story than what we've been used to, I don't know, the entire 55-year existence in the Super Bowl era. So to have that sort of guy, knock on wood, towards the end of that game. And this is, again, you mentioned the storyline between not only these teams, Monday Night Football, opening week, the talent and aspirations for both of these rosters. It's still Aaron Rodgers versus the team that he probably despises the most, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. And to me, him starting off with a win against them would just be electric. I think that would honestly undo so much, not so much uncertainty, but the amount of uncertainty that surrounds this team heading into the season. Because Jets fans are just notoriously negative and rightfully so because of what we've seen for so long. So I think this is a great measuring stick, like you were saying. I don't think fans would even be upset if they covered, for example, whatever, like a 24-20 loss. Again, just show that you belong with the big boys and with Aaron Rodgers. And then as the season goes along, that'll help out because again, he still is rusty. Like you mentioned, he's been out for an entire year now and he tore his Achilles and he's 40 years old. So it's going to take some time, but I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, let me say, half a Jet fan. I feel like once Rodgers takes his fifth snap of the season, I think they'll feel a lot better about the situation.
I wouldn't even say fifth snap, like complete a pass first,
Yeah.
and then I'll be a little bit happier about that. And then, by the way, I don't know the full story on Trent Williams for San Francisco, so he's got to be able to go too for them. That's just like sort of a side note within the game itself. If Trent isn't 100% and ready to go for that game, I think that's a huge plus for the Jets.
Yeah, I think also a big question for the Jets, how the offensive line holds up against one of the best pass rushers in the NFL here. Because obviously, like, they have a lot of talented pieces, but again, like with all the veteran rest days for Tyron Smith and some of the injuries Morgan Moses had early in camp here, like not get a ton of work together. And that's been a story for the Jets the past few years with the line.
That's been the case, but I think that's what drafting Fashanu does for you, right? Because you know he has that sort of flexibility. He could go left tackle, he could go right tackle. If Moses is not working, or if Smith is, or they both have injury issues, realistically, he could fill in on one of those spots. Obviously, for me, I'm not even concerned about Tyron Smith. If Tyron Smith is on the field, I know what to expect of him. He's one of the best left tackles of his generation. For me, the issue is how does Joe Tippmann do? And how is AVT? Because AVT is coming off two catastrophic injuries for his careers. How does he respond? Does he show that level of, I mean, he had all pro talent, right? Like that was insane on how he looked when he was on the field. Question is, can he stay on the field? Can he stay healthy enough throughout the season? Because if the Jets realistically keep that offensive line healthy enough and Rodgers healthy, the sky's the limit. And that's the most important thing. And again, that matchup against San Francisco, another great measuring stick against one of the NFL's best defenses. How do they do against that? Because Bosa is ferocious. And he's probably not going to be too happy after everything that's been going on in the political world. So probably not the best time to face him.
Yeah, so that's what on here. One of the big games of the week, the Jet 49er game here. We're also going to do our NFL picks for the week. Every week, I have a different guest on here. So Martino's not going to be every week. Martino will be here week one. Maybe he'll come back in the postseason, depending on scheduling situations here. But We're going to do 3 spread picks every single week. For those of you new to the podcast, we're going to use the DraftKings lines here. So keep track of how we're
Hmm.
doing over the course of the season, see how this goes. And usually we do pretty well in these picks. So
Well, yeah, speak for yourself. I forget my record last year, but I'm either great or I'm terrible. So I'm on the either side of the spectrum.
yeah, so we're going to go ahead here. Let's get into these picks here. Martino, as the guest, you can go first. Where are you going with pick number one of the 2024 NFL season?
We can go for any game to start, correct?
Anyone you want.
All right, so I guess we'll go with the Saints Panthers. This one is a spread of four. New Orleans is hosting this one, second year in with Derek Carr now. I think they have plenty of weapons here. Carolina is terrible. We know this as a roster. It's going to be really difficult for them to hang around. 4 points is not that great. I think they're probably doing this because of divisional purposes, and the Saints aren't fully trustworthy. But for me, I think the talent gap between both of these rosters is so insane. I think Bryce Young gets benched by Halloween this year. I think it's going to go poorly for him. I don't think they did enough to help him out. They don't have that many weapons, and it's sort of the guys that they will be getting. I think Brooks, their running back, won't be there for this first week as well. So for me, I really like the Saints. They still have a ton of talent offensively, and I think they'll be able to get the job done, especially at a -4.
Yeah, this also feels to me like a must-win game for the Saints, given what's on the line for them this year, considering like how much their cap is going to be looming for them in the future. And like if you lose at home in Carolina to Carolina week one, like you're getting everybody on the hot seat immediately.
Yes, just like you were saying about the Jets and how nobody's going to be here the next year. If the Saints are having issues against the Carolina Panthers, nobody is going to be there next year.
All right, where you going with pick two?
Yeah, we're gonna bring it back up here in our area. Giants against the Vikings. This one is almost a pick 'em at this point. Giants are +1 dogs. Listen, not high on the Giants. We all know about their talent, but this is an opening game, and I think they're still capable enough of pulling this off. Sam Darnold gets his return to MetLife. I don't think he's played in MetLife since then. I think he's played against the Jets. Maybe he did.
In
Who was
Carolina,
he
he
on?
did.
Yeah, okay. So there you go. Carolina, that's correct. Because he's been bouncing around so much, forgetting certain teams he's been on. But yeah, listen, the Giants +1 at home. I still think they have a respectable defense. That defense is probably going to wear down towards the end of the season because Daniel Jones and that offense is a catastrophe. I don't love their running back situation, obviously. But again, Malik Neighbors, I think is going to show out for this team. I think he's super talented. And they just have a bunch of talent all over the place. I think the Vikings obviously have the edge in terms of coaching with KOC. But again, for me, Sam Darnold has proven that he is not good enough. They do have Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones is a hell of a running back too. But the Giants as dogs at home to open the season, when some people I think are sort of doubting them, they've proven that they can punch above their weight in certain circumstances. And as much as I dislike Daniel Jones as a player, he's not that awful that he can't beat the Vikings and Sam Darnold. But Brian Flores will be a difficult task for him.
Yeah, I think that game is going to tell you a lot about the Giants are going to do this year because it's a game where you look at on paper, it's like, okay, they got a good shot to win this game. Darnold's not that good. The Vikings have issues on defense here. If this is a situation, where the Giants, are giving it up late and there's a big like Justin Jefferson touchdown down the seam to end the game and they lose by one possession, not a good sign for the whole year.
No, I think this year is more doom and gloom. This is just like Daniel Jones. If you have a pulse, if you have anything, I think this might be an audition for other teams in the NFL if he gets a change of scenery. It's obvious that he is not the guy. The way his contract is set up, this isn't for him and the future of the Giants right now. I think really this year is just about can Brian Dable save his job and can Joe Shane also save his job as well. I think Shane and Dable will have an opportunity to draft their own quarterback if they do well enough this year, but they have to prove that. So I think week in, week out, their game plans are just going to be so well thought out. And I do respect Dable on a level. I don't think he's as poor as we've seen because that year when they won that playoff game against these Vikings, they've proven that they could do more than what some people expect. I think the Giants will be bad this year, but not as terrible as some people think.
All right, let's pick two. We're going to pick three.
Yeah, we're going out west. The Raiders versus the Chargers. Chargers hosting this one. This is a coaching thing for me. Um, Harbaugh coming back. He is one, it doesn't matter if it's college, NFL, one of the best football coaches on the planet, still to this very day. I think that's a huge advantage over someone like Antonio Pierce. And again, you're talking about the first game of the season. The amount of preparation that has gone in for someone like Jim Harbaugh. And by the way, they have Gardner Minshew in at quarterback for the Raiders because he beat out AOC. And again, Justin Herbert is phenomenal. Getting a coach like this to manage games like that, because we know what the Chargers are capable of doing, especially with this quarterback. Um, Obviously, their weapons aren't as great as we would have liked. You could even argue the Raiders have better skill weapons going into this season. But for me, this is about coaching and the better quarterback and being at home. For me, I think this is a new era for the Chargers. I think they're going to have a very strong season, and Jim Harbaugh is going to be proving that. And minus 3.5 at home. For me, I like it. And again, the Raiders, sure, they'll give them a tough game because they're a divisional opponent. But minus 3.5 with Harbaugh and Herbert, for me, seemed too good to kind of pass up because I really believe in them.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick too. Plus, I feel like the coaching edge there matters. I think Harbaugh's going to bring give him credibility to the Chargers.
Yeah, and Antonio Pierce did like an okay job, and I'm happy for him getting that. I think he's one of those guys that's a player's coach and has the camaraderie in the locker room. And the Raiders are, we know how they are. They could be a very volatile situation, but they still have those skilled players there. Just for me, Harbaugh is just another level of a coach. And when you have far and away the better quarterback in this game, I'm going to go with them.
All right, you're on the board. I'm up now. Pick number one. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills laying 5.5 at home against the Arizona Cardinals here. I think a lot of people are down on Buffalo. This is still a very good football team. They are hosting an Arizona team that's coming east, playing 1 o'clock game, which is never a good thing for those West Coast teams, especially with the ones that are underachieving here. I think Buffalo isn't hearing all along, oh, this is not your year. The Jets are coming. The Dolphins are coming. I think they come out and put up a big showing against the Cardinals. They win by at least 10. So I'm going to go Bills minus 5.5, pick one.
Yeah, listen, the Bills are awesome. Josh Allen is incredible. I think Dalton Kincaid is obviously the breakout star to happen for them. Shakira also is somebody that has a lot of capabilities. And listen, this is a game that they have to have because you're talking about how difficult the division is going to be with the Dolphins and the Jets. So you're right, they have to come out swinging in this one.
All right, pick number two. I'm going with the dog here. I'm taking the Colts getting 2 at home against the Houston Texans. This is one where I feel like everybody's all over the Houston Texans. They want a playoff game. CJ Stroud is the next great quarterback. They bring in Stephon Diggs. They bring in Joe Mixon. The Colts have had this game circled on the calendar since January because the Colts lost to the Texans end of the season to get knocked out of the playoff spot. The Colts were literally 1 game short of the playoffs last year. They're getting their quarterback back to Anthony Richardson. I think it's a spot where they're going to be a lot more amped up for this game. The Texans are. I think the Colts are going to pull the upset here. Give me the 2 points. Give me the Colts.
This was one of the games that I was looking at and decided not to pick just because it seems so difficult for the reasons that you mentioned, that the Texans have so much hype going into this. The Colts weren't necessarily that poor last year. And again, Jonathan Taylor is a big factor in that. He nearly missed half the season, let alone just because of the games that he missed. And then on top, easing back in, he didn't get as many touches as you would have liked. So to have him back in there for them, but man, if CJ Stroud is as good as we saw in his rookie season, it might be difficult to go against him. And that's why I just stayed away from this game. I respect your trust there. Are you not worried about Anthony Richardson and what he could potentially show or not show in this game?
I think he's gonna have a big game. I have a feeling this whole team has had this game circled. They're gonna bring an extra effort here.
Respectful. I got it.
Pick three. I'm going to go to Sunday Night Football. I'm going to take the Lions laying 3.5 against the Rams here. Playoff rematch. We saw how nuts Detroit went last year when they saw Stafford come in the building here. I feel like the Rams overachieved a bit last year. I think that there's a potential to decline a little bit here. It's a magical number at 3.5. I really love Detroit. They have a good chance to get the Super Bowl out of the NFC this year. I think they start off at home, make a big statement. Lions win. I'll take the 3.5, pick three.
I'm gonna I totally agree where you're coming from. I understand every single point you made, and this is another game that I was looking at. I was like, you know what? The Rams are the better coach team, and I love everything that Detroit is doing. I question if some of the steam from all the positivity and the highs that they have, can they handle that going into the next season? Because Detroit has never had expectations like this year over year. This is the first time that we've really ever seen this. So how do they handle that? Sean McVay is still an incredible head coach. I think he's the best one in the NFL if it's not Andy Reid. And for me, when you have someone like that, you have Cup from the start, you have Kyron Williams, you still have Stafford, who's returning home. Who's to say their revenge is not out here for this one too? You talk about the Colts having something circled on their calendar. I think the same could go here, but that's a big number. For me in an opening game where all that hype is with the Detroit Lions. That's still a very difficult place to play. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't pick this game for those exact reasons I just mentioned. But I think you have a great shot in this one.
All right, reset the picks here. Martino took the Chargers and the Saints laying 3.5 at their games, the Raiders and the Panthers, respectively. Giants 1 point dog at home. The Bills, for me, -5.5 against the Cardinals. The Lions laying at 3.5 against Sunday Night Football. And the Colts getting 2 at home against the Texans. Those are your picks for week number 1 here. And Martino, as is tradition here, while I'm in the knockout pools, I off my pick here every week.
Yeah.
Do you do the knockout pools?
I have never done a knockout pool before, or survivor pool. You're saying you want me to make a pick for one, or are you just
I said,
asking?
have you ever done one?
I've never done one. Never done one.
I might be able to hook you up with one off the air if you would like to participate, but I will give you I give you my pick here, and I feel like a lot of the people are going with the Bengals week 1. I think I'm gonna ride with the Bills. I am taking the Buffalo Bills here as my knockout pick to beat,
I knew you were gonna do that.
because for me, Cincinnati, I know they should beat the Patriots, but this team has a tendency to start slow. That scares me in a knockout pool.
That's yeah, and I understand your perspective as well because the Patriots are going to suck all year long. So this isn't necessarily like even the game that you would have to pick the Bengals, and I think the Bengals there'll probably be other opportunities, but teams that go against the Pats, I don't think you necessarily have to pick this one. I really do like the Bills one. So yeah, best of luck to you with that.
Yeah, I'm checking back on some of Cincinnati's early games. They started 0-2 last year because they lost the Browns in week 1, the Ravens. Week 2, they lost the first 2 games in 2022. Like, they have not had a good run here. They won. They took overtime in week 1. They're usually slow starters, the Bengals. So that's something I'd be terrified of. I'm doing a knockout pick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and all just the crapshoot of what week 1 in the NFL is and what expectations are for some teams that, the NFL is really one of those things. We really don't know how good a team is until we see them on the field playing against one another. You can't really say the same for basketball and I guess baseball to an extent you'll figure out. Sometimes there's some surprise teams, but there's no amount of surprise teams like the NFL brings.
Yep. And next week, we're going to go to the Giants side of things. My buddy Phil Lombardo and talk some Giants football, make some picks in week 2. And we'll see if your pick proved me correct here, if he's happy or sad after week 1.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I would like to look good on this show, but again, I don't think the Giants are as bad as some people think. I think they're a poor team. I think they'll probably be selecting within the top 10 or at least in that range once again.
Yeah, I talked about at the top of the pod, the Giants too. The thing is here, like their first 2 games are winnable, but then you go from like weeks 3 to 8 at Cleveland, Dallas at home on a short week, go to Seattle, Bengals, Eagles, Monday night in Pittsburgh. Like that's a very rough stretch for the Giants.
Yeah, I mean it's just there's no favors in the NFL. We'll see what the Commanders are going to be like. I think that's a huge thing. The Giants usually do well against them, but Eagles, Cowboys, clearly the better teams within the division. And then we'll see what the Commanders do. Truthfully, because there is a case that the Commanders could be a clearly better team than the New York Giants. Just not fully convinced on Jaden Daniels. Yeah, it feels like all these rookie quarterbacks selected within the top 5 are basically like, yeah, these guys will all be good. Do we know that? Are we sure?
Yeah,
So I don't know.
we know at least like 2 of them are probably not going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb has obscene hype that we haven't seen in a very long time. I know you're a big Hard Knocks watcher, so that opening episode, I've never seen someone get so hyped up. And listen, I'm hyped for Bears fans. They're basically Midwest Jets. They have historically some of the worst quarterbacks of all time. They never had a quarterback throw 30 touchdowns in a season. They've never had a 4,000-yard passer. But I would like to remind some people, I think we've only had one 30 touchdown passer, and that might have been Ryan Fitzpatrick. And if not, it might have been maybe 2 guys. And by the way, the only 4,000-yard passer the Jets have ever had was the first 4,000-yard passer of all time, and that was Joe Namath. So we're equally as garbage. So just wanted to put that out there. You guys aren't the only team like that.
Yeah, and that's definitely a good point on the Bears and the Giants situation. You have to look at too is like their offensive line is a mess, and those are a lot of good pass rushers in that stretch of games I just listed.
Yeah, that as well. So we'll see what happens there. Daniel Jones has looked is brutal. By the way, just so again, I just keep getting reminded on how terrified he looks almost every time he gets rushed. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true, Martino. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People I'll follow you on social media. Give us some of your content. How can I do that?
Yeah, you can just follow me at Martino Puccio, doing a little bit of rebranding this year, heading into this sports season. So not going to be tweeting as much soccer on my main account. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, that'll be on that Milan podcast on Twitter. You can go and follow that over there. And then obviously my YouTube channel at Martino Puccio, Instagram the same. So yeah, I'm very excited for everything. We'll see what these Metsies can do during this last month of the season. I'm not terrified because I don't have high expectations, but yeah, it's just exciting. So I'm excited to watch the home stretch of the season with you and Will.
And the crazy thing with them is, that regardless of what the next month is, the entire season coming out of that 3-game series in Atlanta the last week of September.
Like that's like something that's not even on my radar, and you just like put it on my radar. I just didn't even want to think about it yet. Listen. If they finish above 500 and manage to get into that third wild card spot, and the chase for the wild card spot is really difficult. The Cubs are heating up, and there's other teams that are obviously Arizona and San Diego cannot lose at this point. Despite a solid split from ourselves, you kind of worry. You kind of worry because Atlanta just has our number. It doesn't matter how many injuries we have. So the Metsies are going to have to prove something. But you never know in baseball.